Hi everyone, I'm Sarah and welcome back to my channel, and this is going to be my ReadEHThon reading vlog. So for those of you who don't know, the ReadEHThon is a readathon that is hosted and started by Kayla from Books and Lala, as well as 7 other hosts this year. I think it's 7. The general idea for this readathon is to read books set in Canada by Canadian authors. I love it. I found some really great books to be reading. So here are the books I want to read this week. There are 2 more that are on my TBR tentatively, but I don't have either of them yet. I'm supposed to get both of them this week sometime, but I don't know how it's going to work. One is a graphic novel, so I could probably read that one no matter when it gets to me. The other one I'm not super sure about. It's going to depend on when it gets to me and how burnt out I am by the end of the week, but both of them are books I do want to read regardless of whether I read them this week or not. So they will get read at some point, just maybe not this week. So the books that I have are Shadows Cast by Stars by Knutsson, Bone Black by Carol Rose GoldenEagle, The Marrow Thieves by Cherie and Dimelean, We Have Always Been Here by Samra Habib. This is The Hanging of Angelique by Afua Cooper, and the full title is The Hanging of Angelique, The Untold Story of Canadian Slavery and the Burning of Old Montreal. And then I've Been Meaning to Tell You by David Chariandy, which is a letter to his daughter. So I feel like I have a pretty good mix of fiction and nonfiction, and I'm just super excited. I have had these books sitting for what feels like years, but it's just been a couple of weeks. I think today I'm going to start with I've Been Meaning to Tell You. It's relatively thin. It'll start the ReadEHThon off to a good start. If I can finish this today, I'll feel very good and accomplished because I have 6 books here, potentially 7 or 8 to read this week. So I think if I can read this one today, I'll feel in a good place to continue on. And then I think I'm also going to start The Hanging of Angelique. Now this is a sort of not fictionalized, but it's written more like a fiction story for Angelique, the woman at the center of this story, while also incorporating a lot of historical context and historical meaning of it. And so because it's kind of both, I think this might take me a little bit longer to get through, so I might also start this one today. I might separate it into sections and see how much I should read per day to make sure I read by the end of the readathon. So I might do that, is separate this book and read like 50, I might try to read like 50 pages or so a day in this book, and then if I get really into it I can keep reading. I'm not gonna like stop myself, but that way I can kind of keep myself on task. And I think the first fiction book I'm going to read is The Marrow Thieves by Cherie Dimaline. They're not exactly light topics, but the fiction aspect of it will make it easier to read than the nonfiction. For me personally, I get really into stories, so having a story to follow or characters to follow is incredibly helpful. I will keep you updated on how it goes. I will bring you along with my life, but I'm still in quarantine. Month 5, guys. It's going great. Oh yeah, at the end of this week it'll pretty much have been 5 months total, right? Oops, wait. Yeah, at the end of this vlog I'll have officially been in quarantine for 5 months. 3 of those months I've been completely alone, so thanks for being there for me, guys. Appreciate it. It's been nice to have a camera to talk to for an actual reason versus, you know, just myself as I stand alone. So those are my plans for today and tomorrow, is to read those 3 books, or at least make progress on those 3 books, and then sort of see how things go from there. I'm just really excited about this week. I think it's going to be really fun. I have a lot of awesome books that I'm super excited for, so I'm just feeling really good about this week. I think it's going to be a great reading week for me. It's going to be good. Okay, officially finished I've Been Meaning to Tell You by David Chariandy, and I really liked this book because it's like subtitle is a letter to my daughter, and so I originally thought going into it that it was going to end up being this sort of letter that was full of like advice or what not to do or what he wants her to do, but it ended up being vastly different. It's more about his life and his parents' lives and how he is happy that things are different for his daughter and that he's excited to see her grow into who she's going to become. Like, I just thought that was such a beautiful thing. Where is the line that I liked? I offer these words to you with conviction and sincerity, for as your parent, I have no right to be otherwise. And yet I also say this with humility, for I know ultimately that you will have to find your own answers. It was just really beautifully written. And it was tied like past and present and hope for the future, and shows how the different generations lived and reacted to things. Yeah, so this is definitely going to end up being a 4 or 5 star read. I need to sit with it a little bit longer to think about what I want to give as a rating. So yeah, officially 1 book down for the ReadEHThon, and I'm feeling pretty good. I still have a lot of time left today, even if I still have to work. And I think it's gonna end up being really good. So I will update you when I have more to update. Otherwise, that's all I got for today.
You hurt me, you did, several times. It hurts to admit that we're no different. I find it hard to commit, but you don't even try. Still I'm better with than without you. Oh, I'm on it, I want it, but why do you seem to call in your eyes? I can't tell if you're here or you're out there. Do you wanna be out there? You don't need to be Prince Charming to me. I just need this to be real. I don't need no fairy tale. You don't need a killer pregnant for me. Ooh, I don't need no fairy tale.
Gosh, this angle is weird, but it's fine. Okay. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday morning. I didn't update yesterday. I didn't read a lot yesterday. I am incredibly exhausted today. I didn't sleep well, which is just my life the last few months, I guess. So I have my little like aloe vera eye things on. I think they help a little. It mostly just makes me feel better that I'm doing something. So yeah, we're just gonna do this with these on today because I just want to give a quick update before I have to actually start my work day. But I have made quite a bit of progress on the Hanging of Angelique, because like we're talking about Marie-Joseph Angelique and her sort of story and her basically the history that we know of her, which isn't a whole lot, but it's enough to kind of speculate. And it's through those sort of speculations and the historical context that Afua Cooper is sort of creating this like landscape and backdrop for the events that transpire at the end of Angelique's life. And it doesn't feel, even though we're jumping around to different locations and we're kind of following different paths, even though we're jumping around to like different locations and we're following like different paths, it still feels very connected to the story of Angelique specifically. So that's been really, really great. It is a fairly intense first chapter, because it basically uses the trial documents for Angelique's torture and death, and it might be gruesome to some people, so just like FYI for that going in. Sadly, I haven't made a ton of progress on the Marrow Thieves. I am only on page 32. I like the idea of the story and the kind of setting and the setup. I like Frenchie. I think my problem is I think it just jumped massively forward in time, and so I'm trying to figure that out in my own brain, how far ahead it jumped and if that matters. So that's where I'm at with this one. I need to read a lot of this today if I want to stay somewhat close to the pace that I wanted to set, so I'm not reading basically 4 books over the weekend, or trying to read 4 books over the weekend. I just have a lot of reading to do today. I have a long day of work ahead of me, so that is where things are at. Yeah, I'm gonna go make another cup of coffee to help me get through this morning. It's still relatively early and I am just absolutely exhausted. So that's gonna bode well for all the reading I have to do today, I'm sure. Oy. Good morning. So it is early Thursday morning. I'm kind of just waking up. So I didn't get as much reading done yesterday as I wanted to. I ended up getting a headache that turned into a migraine for a couple of hours, and then it went away, and it was kind of a whole thing. Yeah, so yesterday I ended up getting the notification on Libby that my rental of A Girl Called Echo Volume 1, The Pemmican Wars by Katherena Vermette, was available for me to borrow. Gosh, sorry, my voice is kind of going a little crazy, so just ignore it. So I ended up renting that, and I read it yesterday right away. It was because it was a little bit shorter. It's like a graphic novel, and I was feeling really stressed that I wasn't getting enough reading done, so I thought, let me read this over, and at least that'll be book number 2 that I can cross off my list. And so it's basically the story of Echo and how it seems like when she dreams, she's transported back in time, which I thought was really an interesting, I really liked that. I thought when I was reading about this graphic novel series that it would be she's just transported in time, there would have been some sort of reason, and then she was just kind of stuck there. But versus this is her actively trying to go back in time. I think after the first time it happens, she actively tries. It seems like she's actively trying to go back in time. It's all just tied around Echo's lack of like a knowledge or understanding about the Maltese people, and it was just a very, very good setup. I actually kind of want to read more of this. I just really liked the setup. I want to see where this goes, and I really think, and the art style was absolutely beautiful. I really loved it. I really enjoyed it. And that's book number 2 officially off my list. I got to page 80 of the Marrow Thieves yesterday. I'm enjoying it for the most part, but there's still something that like is lacking for me for this book, and I don't know if it's just the story is more of a slow burn. I'm gonna keep working on this. I'd love to be able to finish this today, but I did make quite a fair bit of progress on the Hanging of Angelique. I have about a little over, it's like 100 pages. Yeah, I have basically 100 pages left of this book, and the last 100 pages seem to be almost exclusively Angelique sort of starting that fire and the fallout and her eventual execution. But I do think this is a book that I'm going to want to reread again when I have more time, because I think a lot of the historical details are not staying in my brain. And then it doesn't help that anytime they mention Wisconsin or Green Bay, I'm like, I know there, I'm from there, which is not helpful. That's not the vibe, that's not what you're supposed to do, but it's what I'm doing. I know how Marie-Joseph Angelique's story ends, but as I'm reading it, I just kind of want it to end differently. And there's a lot of discussion on why Canada acts like there was no slavery involved in the history. And like reading all about that section just reminds me so much of my dumb country, where like slavery was a massive part of American economy and American history and culture, and we never talk about it. We just ignore the parts of our history that we don't want to talk about, that makes us uncomfortable to deal with. Where basically in 1787, the Northwest Territory, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, and part of Minnesota issued an ordinance prohibiting slavery. Vermont and other parts of New England had also abolished slavery by this date. And reading that, like, that is also not something that I've ever heard said before. And I think it goes into the idea that when America teaches about history, and specifically slavery, it's taught in the sense of they didn't know it was wrong, like it was just a part of history. And like, no, they knew what they were doing. They chose to do that anyways. Like, it just kind of shoots a hole in that idea that slavery was just a thing. Everybody felt like everybody did it because it was what was done. And it's like, everybody did it because they chose to do so. Like, but that's not what this, that's a topic for a whole other time. Afua Cooper writes really, really, like, I don't know how to describe it, but like, for a book that has so much historical context, it doesn't feel overwhelming, if that makes sense. Where like sometimes when you're reading like a history book or a historical account of something, it just feels like it's dragging you down because there's just so many facts, so many details, so much context that needs to be said. But this book, it like flows and it reads really, really well, really, really easily. So I think that's another reason why I'm enjoying it so much. I'd like to at least finish one of these today. If I could finish both of them, that would be fantastic. I'd like to have tomorrow to read Bone Black, which is one of the books I'm really excited about. That would be great. And then I have 2 books to finish over the weekend. That's the general plan. I never ended up getting Policing Black Lives yet, but I think at this point, since I'm so far behind on the Marrow Thieves, even if I were to get it today or tomorrow, I don't think I would have time to read it. So I'm gonna have to stick with the 7 books that I have / had and call it a day. Good morning, everybody. It is now Friday. It's not Friday morning. I wanted to give you an update. Yesterday was a little bit rough. I mentioned I had a pretty bad migraine on Wednesday, and so I didn't get as much reading done, and yesterday it was back. It's one of those things where I'm not 100% sure if it was an actual migraine or if it was like a migraine hangover. It's hard to tell, but I obviously rested a lot yesterday afternoon because I just couldn't focus on anything. My eyes were really sore. So unfortunately I didn't make a ton of progress, but I did actually finish one of the books last night, and that was The Hanging of Angelique by Afua Cooper. I think Afua Cooper did a really fantastic job of telling Marie-Joseph Angelique's story while including all the historical context that was needed to explain how and why she was, well, not necessarily how and why, but like the speculation of how and why she ended up in Canada and New Montreal, and how she found herself being, you know, basically accused and convicted of arson. So the story obviously ends with Angelique's execution, and there's a lot of speculation as to kind of why she started the fire, what she was hoping to gain, all these different things. But then Afua Cooper ends the book with epilogue, A Silenced Voice Heard Again, and she talks about how Angelique's story is kind of the first recorded slave narrative that we have in the quote-unquote New World, because Angelique did take her story into her own hands, and she ended it and tried to do the best that she could with it. And I really liked that that Afua Cooper kind of talked about that aspect of it all. And I also really like that Afua Cooper kind of called out the Angelique fell in love. That's why she left, and that's why she tried to flee, because it was kind of rubbing me the wrong way when I was reading it, where they were like, oh, you know, your lover, and yeah, Angelique and Thibault or whatever his name is, I honestly, probably Thibault, I don't know. I don't care about this guy, so he doesn't get a proper pronunciation. I'm sure that they loved each other in some sense, potentially, but I couldn't figure out why it was so, I didn't like that idea. And she explained it perfectly by saying, by emphasizing love as Angelique's primary motive, the writers not only rob her of the agency that she exhibited in her quest for liberty, they also diminish the violence inherent in slavery. For them, Angelique did not flee because she found her enslavement humiliating, awful, and suffocating. She fled because she was in love. If we take this reasoning one step further, it is easy to conclude that slavery could not have been so bad. I believe that the in-love thesis advanced by these authors speaks to their unease with the race, gender, and power relations intrinsic to slavery. And yeah, that was it, where it's like, yeah, maybe, I'm sure she felt something for Thibault, and whether it's true love or the fact that he was a white Frenchman and could help her escape easier, you know, we will never know. But like, that idea is, yeah, like, her whole entire, the ending of her life was pretty much her own agency. She chose to do certain things, and she chose to start the fire, you know, presumably. I'm with Afua Cooper that she did, in fact, start this fire, and because Thibault left her and abandoned her, she really had no choice but to try and fight it. But yeah, I really, really loved this book. I am giving it 4 stars. I'm still kind of processing it, so I'll write my Goodreads review probably tomorrow. Now, my plans for today, I don't know. See, my thing is, I'm just not really super into the Marrow Thieves, and I don't know if trying to continue to read it is going to be good or bad, because, like, I only have, like, less than 200 pages to read of this book. So it's like, I should just read it. So what I might do today is start Bone Black by Carol Rose GoldenEagle. This is the one where, this is the sort of mystery-ish thriller story where Indigenous women are mysteriously disappearing, and Ren, our point of view character, her sister ends up being taken or disappearing, and she goes to the police to ask for help, and they kind of don't give her the time of day, and so Ren takes it upon herself to try to find her sister and find out what happened. This is the one. This one and The Hanging of Angelique were the 2 that I was most excited for this week. I think I'm just going to put the Marrow Thieves on hold for right now, and I'm going to work on this book today. I might start this one today as well, because this is a nonfiction memoir, and so maybe reading a couple of chapters of this today, kind of reading a couple of chapters over the next 3 days would be good. So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at today. I'm going to work on these 2 books today and sort of see how I feel. Okay, so some updates. What the hell is going on in this book? So when I read the summary on the back of this book, I 1000% thought that the idea of Ren taking justice into her own hands was her hunting for her missing sister, maybe kind of taking down some of the presumably men who took her or whatever. But what just happened was absolutely crazy. I did not see that coming. I was just like, Ren, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then I'm still just like, oh my god. I'm trying really hard not to spoil anything specific. So let's just say that I am very shocked at what went down. It's not the direction I thought this was going to go. I'm still intrigued by where this is all going, I guess. And enjoying somewhat of the ride that Ren is taking me on, which I don't know where we're gonna end up. I don't know where we're gonna end up, but I am so happy that I picked up this book today. I just want to keep reading this book and never ever put this book down. This story is very, very intriguing. It's just completely drawing me in, and I am going to keep reading. So perhaps I'll give you another update later. Well, guys, I finished Bone Black. What do I think about this book? It was a wild ride, and I think the magical, spiritual sort of elements that are included in this book are really, really interesting. Sorry, I'm just realizing my whole head's cut off. It's fine, we're gonna just go with it. Where Ren basically feels like she's been given this almost quest by some sort of godlike being, and it's creepy and horrifying and intense. This book was so good. I am like just still processing it all, and to be honest, I can't believe that I read this entire book today with how much I have been kind of struggling with other books. I am just absolutely just all over the place right now. But fantastic read, fantastic book. So that is officially 4 books down, 3 books to go. All right, good morning everybody. It is Sunday morning, just about 9 a.m. I'm just making a cup of coffee, and I thought I should give you an update on where I'm at. So, I did officially finish the Marrow Thieves last night. I did end up really liking it, and I think the problem I had with it was that the pacing was a little slower than I wanted it to be, because I was expecting to read this quick. Like, this book is rather small. It's like only 230 pages or so. And so when I started it, I was like, okay, I can knock this book out in probably 3 days, if not less. And the problem is, it is a book that it's a bit more of an intense read, and I needed to take a little bit more time to process it. So I was reading like 40-ish pages a day and feeling like I'm so far behind, I'm not into this book, when what was actually happening is I was just needing to take a break. You know, there's a lot of intense, traumatic things that occur in this book, so I needed to take that space. That's what I have on this one. I feel like I wish I could give more of a sort of real, true feelings on it, but I don't have anything right now. I liked it. I really enjoyed the writing. Like, I did really enjoy this. I did like the story, and I really liked the characters and everything. And then I also made some progress in We Have Always Been Here. I've got 50 some pages left to read of this book today, and I can easily finish this book up for sure. I'm really enjoying this book. It's still really resonating with me, which I know might seem weird, but it's just a story that is resonating with me in a lot of ways. I'm really enjoying the way that Samra Habib is writing this story in her memoir. It feels like a conversation, even though it's one-sided. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how it feels to me. So that will be great to finish up today. I am also sad to say that I'm not going to be able to read Shadows Cast by Stars. I just kind of have run out of time, and this book is over 400 pages, and I'm feeling a little burnt out, to be honest, with how much I've read so far this week, and I honestly don't know if I can read another story right now about that's similar to the Marrow Thieves, in the sense of Indigenous people are also being hunted in this one, except they're being hunted for their blood. I will read it at some point in the future because it is a book that I do want to read. I just cannot read it today. So where I'm at right now is with the completion of the Marrow Thieves. I have read a total of 5 books so far this week for the ReadEHThon, and once I complete We Have Always Been Here, I will have my total up to 6, and I feel pretty good about that total. I wanted 7, and I had originally 8 books on my TBR, but one never got here still, so hopefully soon. And I still think, you know, 6 books is completely admirable. Like I read a pretty wide variety of different things. So I'm going to consider this book oh my gosh. I'm going to take this week as like a win. So I'm pretty excited. I'm excited to finish this book up today. I've got some other stuff I've got to work on, so I'm not sure exactly when my last update will be, but I will talk to you guys when I finish. Okay everyone, so I have officially completed We Have Always Been Here by Samra Habib, and obviously I loved it. I really enjoyed her story. I really enjoyed seeing somewhat of an older woman coming out as queer. That's not something that I get to read about very often. Like, it really resonated with me. There were certain tones that like fit my story too. So that's awesome. I thought I would give a quick overview rundown of what I read very, very quickly. So I read A Girl Called Echo, and the author's name is escaping me at the moment because I rented it from my library, so I read it as an ebook or e-comic graphic novel thing. I really did enjoy it. It was a very, very good setup to a series. I also really loved Echo. I loved how the past and present are sort of intertwined there, so I will likely try to read the rest of that series. The next book I also read, I've Been Meaning to Tell You by David Chariandy. This was a nonfiction story, which is a letter from David Chariandy to his daughter, kind of discussing what his experiences were like growing up and what he hopes for her in the future. Absolutely loved this book. I really loved the way that he talked to his daughter and the way that he shared his own struggles and all, but like didn't negate hers or how they differ. I read The Marrow Thieves by Cherie Dimaline. This was the dystopian type story that is set in a world where there was some sort of plague or disease or something that happened that caused everybody besides Indigenous people to lose the ability to dream, and if they use Indigenous people's bone marrow, people can start dreaming again, so Indigenous people are hunted and basically mined for their marrow. This was a really, really interesting book. The writing was really good. I know I said it took me a little while to get into, but I think that was more so because I was expecting to read this book quickly, and I couldn't. I needed to take a little like breaks during it. I did really enjoy this one as well. I mean, honestly, looking at my list, 6 out of 6, I liked every single book that I read, which is crazy to think about. Then I read The Hanging of Angelique by Afua Cooper. This intertwines the story of Marie-Joseph Angelique, who was executed in 1734 for starting the fire that ended up burning down most of Old Montreal, with Canada's history with slavery. I know I raved about it when I was reading it, just how amazingly Afua Cooper kind of wove together the actual historical context of the world and Canada at large right in with Angelique's story herself. Like, it felt like even though it was a bigger thing than Angelique, she was still front and center of it the entire time. I didn't enjoy Angelique's story because it is absolutely a tragedy and devastating what happens to her and her outcome. But I liked reading about her and learning about her and having Afua Cooper really keep her and her agency at the front and center of this piece. So this was a really, really good book to read as well. And then I also read Bone Black by Carol Rose GoldenEagle, and this book surprised me so much. I really wasn't expecting the way that it was going to go. I really misread the back of this cover. I really like books where you're kind of rooting for the person who might not be acting the most ethically. I really loved Ren. I think it ends on a very ambiguous note, and that might, you know, be tough for some people, but I think it really suited the tone of this work and the character of Ren herself and the sort of story that Carol Rose GoldenEagle was trying to say. This this might have been my favorite book that I read, although I do have all of these books I think are pretty high, going to be high raters, but I really liked this one. And then obviously I just finished We Have Always Been Here. I just talked about how much I liked this book. This was a really great memoir piece. It was very easy to read and follow along. It felt very much like a conversation, even though it was a one-sided conversation. It kind of like a podcast sometimes, where you feel like you're a part of the conversation or you're being included even though you absolutely are not. That's kind of how this book felt to me reading it. So honestly, I would highly, highly recommend any of the 6 books that I read for the ReadEHThon. I had a fantastic reading experience. I still am just absolutely astounded that I read 6 books. That doesn't seem real, that doesn't seem normal, that doesn't seem... Considering I've been in such a reading slump, you know, I've been having a really difficult time getting into things. This has really revitalized me with my reading. I read completely outside of a lot of genres I prefer. I don't read a ton of historicals or nonfictions, which is one of my goals for 2020, way back in January, that I wanted to read some of the nonfiction books that I have already owned, which, I mean, I have some up there, I have some down there, and some in my other bookshelf over there, so like, I should probably read some of those nonfiction books. I feel like I read a really wide range of stories and books and types of stories. I really just enjoyed this experience. I'm so excited that I participated. I hope that you guys who participated also had a great time and a good experience. I know I'm really excited to actually get a little bit caught up with some of the reading vlogs that I have been missing because I just ran out of time to do all of it during the week. This has just been fantastic. I had a great time, a great experience. This is my most successful readathon that I've participated in. I think it's just a mix of having really fantastic books and not having incredibly long books either. The longest book I had was The Hanging of Angelique, which was, if I ignore the notes, like 300 pages. All the rest of them were just over 200 or so. The stories I all read were really engaging. The writing was all fantastic. The characters were all really good. I just really had a fantastic week. I read some great books. It was just a great week. So, let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books, what your thoughts were, how you liked them, if you didn't, or if perhaps you might pick up one of these books based on this reading vlog. Again, I cannot recommend these 6 books enough. I think they are incredibly, incredibly good. I would double check some trigger warnings going into some of them, specifically Bone Black, The Marrow Thieves, and obviously The Hanging of Angelique. Definitely check out some trigger warnings for those 3. Please like this video if you liked it and watched all this long way. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of my content. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.